Hey there, it's Olivia-Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today I'm here to give you a TBR Challenge check-in. So in the year of our Lord 2025, I am doing a big TBR challenge. This spans different goals, this spans different things beyond the numbers. It also spans different genres that I'm trying to pick away from my shelves at, and so I gave you my first update in 3 months in, I think, so I'll leave a link below to my introduction to the TBR challenge so you know what I'm talking about in this video, and I'll also leave you a link to my first TBR check-in. We're back. We are going to be analysing the next few months, April, May and June, my numbers for them, what I have to say about what happened. I've got my notes ready, so let's get that graphic up and let's talk about my months. So the first one we need to talk about is April. So April is a month where I only read 8 books. This largely has to do with the fact that I was travelling in April. For half the month I was travelling. Yes, I went to the Caribbean for like 2 weeks. And so my reading on holiday always declines. You would think with all the commute time and the planes that I would read more. No, I mostly sleep and I mostly don't read. So, and then I holiday and I socialise. So I read a lot less. But I still managed to read 8 books, which I think is pretty good for me. I don't even know what the theme was in the month of April, like it's completely slipped my mind, but I was trying to read Jamaican books while I was in Jamaica and Islander books while I was in Barbados. So that was definitely some content I had going on in my mind. I hauled in 12 books, which is actually the least amount of books I'd hauled in all year that point. And I think that largely has to do with the fact that I wasn't home for 2 weeks. So anything that arrived towards the second half of the month, I did not receive, and therefore it did not count in this because I was not here to open the boxes. You'll be able to see the consequences of that in a month coming up. But it did mean that April I'd hauled in the least amount, to me, because I hadn't seen them yet, that I ever did. So I was feeling quite happy about that. Honey, I had a big storm coming. And then I unhauled and unloaded 4 books. I didn't unhaul anything I hadn't read before in the month of April, so that meant I had 4 DNFs in April. And that's quite a lot of DNFs in April. All in all, April was a month where I thought I would do more TBR damage, but I didn't. It stayed at 688 books on my TBR, which is the exact same that we left March in. So didn't win anything, didn't lose anything. You win some, you lose some. It all balanced out just fine. I was quite content with how April turned out as a month for me. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Then we get to May, and this is where I had a massive blow to my TBR challenge, and I was really, really disappointed with the outcome. So in May, I read 14 books. As you can see from the previous months, 14 books tend to be the most that I read. I also read some books that didn't count because I read some Sierra Simone. That doesn't count. So 14 books is quite a really good reading month for me. So I read my way through quite a lot. There's a reason why I read my way through quite a lot in May, and that's because I was feeling pressured because I came home from my 2 weeks trip and I saw the stack of book mail that was waiting for me, and I felt like crying because what happened was in April I wasn't home. I still got emails and I just said yes to everything because I thought I wasn't hauling in that much. Or when you don't visually see the books arrive, you don't really have like a tracking point, a visual tracking point of being like, you've said yes to a lot of books here. And so in May it ended up with the result that I hauled in 33 books. 33 books. Friends, in January it was my birthday and most of those hauled in books were gifts, and that was 25 books. I hauled in more books than I did in my birthday month. I felt really, really heartbroken about that fact. And so when I came home and saw the number of books that I had hauled, I was immediately like, oh my goodness, I need to read. And so I started to read some more of my shorter books to help me through, which was really good. But I also was having a month where I was reading, in May I was reading 5-star predictions, and I ended up, enjoying what I was reading, so I managed to read a bit more, like read a bit faster because I was enjoying what I was reading. But I was devastated at the fact that I'd added in 33 books, and because of that, as a consequence of this as well, I decided I needed to take a very stern look at my shelves, and anything that I wasn't interested in reading, it had to go, which is why I ended up unhauling 12 books. I also did what you guys recommended to me to do in my TBR check-in volume 1, where I did a try a chapter. Now I didn't film a vlog or video for this try a chapter because I just wanted to do it, but I did a try a chapter, and actually I ended up unhauling like 3 books from doing that. So it was actually very beneficial for me to try a chapter of some books that I was not sure about and unhaul them. So that's what I did, like off camera, and I'm very glad. Thank you for the recommendation. That really helped my TBR that month. But even though I read 14 books and I unloaded and donated 12 books, that does not 33 books make. So actually in the end my TBR grew to the number 695 again, and that was the number at which we started my TBR challenge. We started my TBR challenge at 695 in a single month of reckless hauling and reckless saying yes. I basically negated all of the progress I'd made on my TBR for the year, and that was a big blow. I felt really disappointed in myself. I was really upset about it. I was just really upset about it. That's all I can really say. And then we come to June. June is a really good month for me in my TBR challenge. First off, I read 14 books. So as you can see from this chart, 14 tends to be the most that I read. And actually in June I read 16 books. One was a borrowed book, one was an ebook, so they don't count towards the TBR challenge because they're not books on my TBR, on my own TBR, and so 14 books gone. Amazing. That is the most that I typically read in a month. So I was very happy with that. I added 12 books onto my TBR. This is me being very, very selective and really choosing the books that I really want to read. And I'm very proud of myself for hauling in 12 books. First and foremostly because of the fact that 12 books is matching April in the least amount of books that I hauled. The difference being, in April, books came in but I wasn't here to receive them. Whereas here, well, I wasn't here the whole month of June, but I was, able to receive all the books that I was sent in June, and it equals the fact that this is the month where I've hauled in the least, basically. And I'm so proud of myself for being strict, seeing that my TBR was growing too much, and reining it in and being very strict to myself. This is also the first month all year, it took me 6 months, the first month that I read more books than I hauled in. If you look at the numbers, I never done that this month. And then in terms of my unhauled and unloaded number, 3 books. I didn't unhaul anything that I hadn't read before on these shelves because I really have been so strict with my unhauling the month before that I didn't have anything left on my shelves that I didn't want to at least try. So those 3 books are the 3 DNFs that I did in June. So they're all my DNFs basically that were unhauled. That leaves us with a number of 690. Whew. My TBR has gone down again. So it's reduced from January by 5 books, which is not a monumental amount, but the fact that I had to claw it back, I'm proud of myself for clawing it back, and I'm gonna be proud of myself for that, even though I'm not glad that I had undone all of my progress. So you can see that in the past 3 months, my TBR challenge, it's been a bit so that's kind of the trajectory that we're working with here. It's been a roller coaster of ups and downs, but that's me talking about the numbers. Let me talk a bit more in detail about some of my other goals that I had for the TBR challenge. The main one being, I didn't want to just be reading my new releases, I didn't just want to be reading my shorter books, I wanted to be making sure I was reading my thick books that take time, reading classics, and also reading the oldest books on my TBR. Friends, in that regard, we are continuing once again to make such good progress. In terms of big books, I did read some. I read Butter, that was a chunky one. I vlogged my way through that, and I know I read one other big book that I cannot think of the title right now, but those are 2 big books that I read, that I consumed, that are off my TBR. Classics is a genre that I literally don't pick up as much as I should because I love a good classic, and ironically the classic that I did pick up, which was the Edgar Allan Poe, didn't enjoy it, did not like that one. But I'm proud of myself for taking the time to pick up a classic like that. I also picked up some of my plays. I really enjoy my plays. I need more time to read them because I kind of sit down all in one go and read them all at once. I've described this before, but I don't really sit down to read and give myself reading time. I typically don't do that. So the fact that I sat down and read 3 plays goes to show that I'm taking the time to sit down and actively read, which is actually one of my 2025 wishes, I remember, but I've not been doing it as consistently as I hoped I would this year. But also I had in June, forgot to mention, it was my graphic novels and manga reading month, and those are sit down and read during the daytime books for me. I only like to read them in daylight, I don't like to read them in artificial light, which is why I chose the summer month for this. I find it really hard to read and sit down, intentionally to read in the daytime. I mostly read, my sit down commitment time to reading is in the morning, and that actually is fine now because the mornings are bright, or it's in the evening after work and then it's not bright anymore, so I couldn't read my graphic novels. So what I was doing is actually spending more weekend time reading, and that was really nice and refreshing. And I did read some more so graphic novels than manga, but graphic novels and manga. So that was a really nice, reading challenge month for me. And then lastly, reading the oldest books on my TBR, that is going well. I've read a lot from the oldest 100. So I have my TBR in 3 tiers. I've got the oldest 10, which I keep a very sharp, distinct eye on. The oldest 10 are always books that I want to be kicking off. Then I have the oldest 100, and that's been my playing field a lot lately. So I've really been trying to pick out the oldest 100, and you know, after you read some from the oldest 100, you know, more move in. So it's never like a cup that runs out. But I have done such a good job of getting to some of the oldest 100 books on my TBR, the ones that have been here for a long time, and it's time for them to be read and moved on. And then I've got the rest of my TBR, and I have actually done a good job of reading some of the books that have just come in, and there are some books that I bought and I read them the next day. There are some books that are in the latest 50 that I've read, so things aren't sticking. Like, I have a lot of stuff that stick on my TBR, and I feel like I'm chipping at it from both ends, from the oldest to the newest. My TBR challenge is going well in terms of the point on why I want to do it. My TBR has decreased so far this year, and we're halfway through, but I do think there's so much room for improvement. The hauling number is a stickler for me. I need to decrease my hauling number. The number of books I read every month should be bigger than the number of books I haul every month. That is just, it should be that way, and I need to make it that way. So let's see in the next 3 months if I'm able to pull that off. If you'd want more regular updates on what my TBR is looking like, sign up to my Patreon, and they get this kind of update in a grid format with some wording about it every single month. Any paid tier, you get that. Right, that's it from me. That's it from analysing my TBR. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know in the comment section down below. You're halfway through the year. What was the month that you hauled the most books, if you know? And what is a book that has been sitting on your TBR for way too long that you need to get rid of? Give me the deets. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. And you know what they say, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!